Welcome to the Uncanny Academy of X-Men lore. I am Jared, and today we are talking about what is probably one of my absolute favorite X-Men stories of all time, Second Coming. Now we're going to primarily be talking about the main book, Second Coming, and then this book, the Revelations book, was basically at a certain point in the storyline, certain teams of X-Men split off to accomplish little side quests, if you will. And this is basically the side quest story, but we're going to stick with this. So this is taking place immediately after House of M. Well, kind of immediately. And there's a ridiculously low amount of mutants. And the X-Men have relocated from New York to California. Now, what's important to indicate is that previous to the storyline, we had the first birth of a mutant since House of M. And that person's name is Hope, and she's right here on the cover, Hope Summers. She was taken and raised by Cable to keep her safe from Bishop, who was hunting them. Bishop and Cable, basically the X-Men main time travel guys. So Cable took Hope into the future to kind of keep her on the move and such. Okay, so let's get started with X-Men Second Coming. Again, fantastic storyline. So this opens up. So first it opens up, it's like, where were you? So what I took this as is basically where I think what this is doing is okay, so this is probably talking about the aftermath of something that happens later. I have to look that up. So anyway, going next. And by the way, so the story starts off with like these characters saying, where were you when this happened? And then Cyclops basically alludes like we were almost wiped out. So we get to Second Coming number 1. We're in the rubble of the old Xavier Institute. Yeah, it's recently been destroyed. So at one point, Cable and Hope come through the time portal. They return because they defeated Bishop, so it's safe to bring her back because conceivably Hope's presence could lead to the creation of more mutants, so the race does not go extinct. So they reminisce about being there. Hope thought that they beat Bishop, so everything should be back to normal now. All of a sudden, they're attacked by these guys in mech suits, which I think look really dope. So at Utopia, Utopia is think of it as, for those of you that are reading Jonathan Hickman's X-Men run, think of it as like Krakoa, pre-Krakoa, and that it's the island in California off the coast of San Francisco where the X-Men live. And Cyclops is having this meeting. He's talking about how certain mutants died, and this is really bad. So basically, there's like 198 mutants left. So whenever someone dies, I mean, it's a big deal, more than normal, because conceivably it could be like the end of the entire mutant race. Cyclops is really having a tough time. And then one of the Stafford Cuckoos. Now, what these characters are, think of them as sort of clones of Emma Frost. It's basically what they are. So they operate Cerebra, and they say Cable just popped up on Cerebra. So Scott, knowing that Cable would not come back unless it was safe, and most likely brought Hope with him, decides, okay, we're going to fall out and go help them, because if Hope's back, it means conceivably the Earth can start becoming repopulated with mutants. So, and we start like this big panel where we have like a couple of different X-Men teams are splitting up. You have Rogue with Namor, you have the X-Force team. Think of X-Force, and this concept is kind of explored in this book, as the SEAL Team 6 of the mutants, the intelligence agency and like the special operations branch of the mutants. They're like the by any means necessary X-Men team. Okay, so basically the plan is that you have Domino and Vanisher are sent to San Francisco as like an advanced force, and then Namor and Rogue are to hang out in Utopia to help protect Utopia in case of attack. Cannonball takes his team and the Blackbird. And they're supposed to go to like this factory to take it out. And then Wolverine and his team, which are the Alpha roster, are sent to go help Cable and to go help Cable and Hope. So they fall out. At this point, we cut back to Cable and Hope, and they're under heavy fire from these mech suits. I don't know exactly what to call them, but they look pretty dope. I like how they have like the smiley face, like the Joker grin. What I like first off here is that you see Cable and Hope. They're like total like badass Black Ops soldiers. So they're like taking cover, shooting. It's really cool. They do a lot of like, they have a lot of military imagery in this book that I really appreciate as a fan of reading military history books and such. So they take out these mech suits, but then these black vans show up as they normally do and unload these guys in these weird hockey mask like things right here. So at this point, we cut to all the X-Men teams are falling out. Nightcrawler goes with the X-Force team, and they go to the remains of the Xavier Institute, and they find that like Hope and Cable are gone. So then Cyclops tells him, "Okay, I want X-Force. They're probably on the road, so I want you to go cover them on the road." So Cable and Hope are in a Jeep, and they're being followed by those black vans. So what's hilarious is one of these thugs starts going, "Okay, we're gonna mess up these muties. We're gonna really take them out for humanity." He starts like boasting, and then all of a sudden he doesn't get to finish his thought, because before he starts boasting, X-Force just completely smacks, just lays them down the pane. It's like we have Wolverine claws out, and he's like going through the windshield like, "Brah!" It's so cool. It's because you have all the teleporters. You have like 2 teleporters, and they're like portals. So then the team manages to disable the vehicles, and they start interrogating the prisoners. Except the thing is, then X-23 like offs this one prisoner, and Nightcrawler's like, "The hell are you guys doing?" And then Wolverine's like, "Our job. What do you think we're doing? We're getting answers." And then Kurt Wagner, who's Nightcrawler, is like, "Wait a second. Should we really be killing people at this point?" He's basically taking the whole Batman argument in Injustice that we shouldn't kill people, or we shouldn't like execute unarmed prisoners. So obviously, if they're shooting at you, go ahead and take them out. That's besides the point. So we cut to Washington, D.C. in this bunker, and we have this robot here named Bastion. Bastion is like this guy right here. He's basically like hooked up to these machines like in a cross, and he goes, "The mutant messiah is here, kill her." So this is reaffirming that Hope has the potential to like help restore the mutants to their former glory. So then we cut to Hope and Cable are in this department store just picking supplies. They fall out, and then we cut back to the X-Force team, and Kurt's like, "Okay, so wait a second. Scott knew about like using lethal force and everything." So then he contacts Scott. So the way that Cyclops maintains contact with his X-Men team is that he has Emma Frost like put her hands on his head, and then she uses her telepathic powers to project his thoughts throughout the entire team. And it looks like this. I think it's a really clever idea. So then Cyclops is like, "Yeah, I did. We're at war. We're at this point when we're like this depleted in our ranks of mutants, and our race is on the line. We can't afford to play nice anymore," which I appreciate. And I'm like, "Yeah, he's right. What are you talking about?" So then Cyclops goes back to coordinating the other X-Men teams. Then we have Hope. It's so funny because Hope and Cable camp out in this hotel room, and she's like jumping on the bed. So she's like like a kid right here. Just cool. So So they stop there for the day, and then you have Bastion again. He's meeting with like all these famous anti-mutants like Stryker, all these characters, because they want to take out the mutants. So that they figure, since there's like a low number of them, this is our chance to take them out. At this point, we cut to the hotel room again. So we cut to the hotel room where Cable and Hope are attacked. The next force rolls in and starts like bringing the pain. And then all right, so this book basically cuts among the various different X-Men teams. So now we're up to the New Mutant team, which is led by Cannonball. They're the team in the Blackbird that was sent to this factory where they're like making anti-mutant weapons. So Cannonball and his team is, okay, so our job is to attack and take out this facility. There's a lot of them, but we're just going to do it because those are our orders. Again, military imagery. I really like that. So what's interesting is that the X-Force show up and start helping out Cable and Hope, but then like the bad guys start using all these contingencies against the mutants. And you notice, one thing I want you to notice, they keep targeting the teleporters. This will be a key thing, a key point later in the book, and I'll be sure to talk about it later. So basically, the X-Force start engaging this team, these humans, and Cable and Hope escape. That's basically the key thing. And then Cannonball and the New Mutants roll into this facility where they're making all these mech suits and start causing havoc. And what's kind of cool is, all right, so also, so here's the thing. The weird thing is that the guy running this facility apparently transforms himself into this creature. But then what was cool is cutting back to X-Force. So Wolverine turns to Angel and he goes, okay, we have to clear this out really fast. And Angel's like, how fast? And then Wolverine just scowls at him. And then Angel turns to Archangel because he has the ability to turn into this more lethal form. And we saw this in the X-Men Apocalypse movies. The Angel guy, when he started off in the cage fighting, he had the normal angel wings and everything. That's him as Angel. But then when he turns into this darker form, he's Archangel. Like, he legit uses his wings to chop off someone's head. And I'm like, oh, that's so boss. So again, Cable and Hope escape. They say, okay, we're not going to stay at hotels anymore. They're too conspicuous. No, they're in full escape and evasion mode. So what happens next is Cannonball and his team get attacked by this giant robot guy that looks really weird. And at the same time, okay, I'm trying to skip to all the really important parts here. Okay, so X-Force it stops off at this ranch, and the idea is that Kurt is going to teleport them in the direction that is indicated by Emma Frost, because they're using Cerebra to telepathically track Cable and Hope. So the idea is that they'll telepathically communicate with Rogue and Kurt Wagner and tell them, okay, so go here, go here, go here, go here. So, but then suddenly they lose their connection to Cerebra, meaning, this is really important too, we're building towards something later in the book, which is amazing. All of the mutant like telepaths have been cut off from their teams in the field. Even Cerebra has completely like shut down, which I'm like, okay, this is so dope. So then the X-Force team is rolling out, but then all of a sudden their vehicle is attacked by a fighter jet, which Archangel swiftly deals with, killing the mutant known as Ariel. And then, so let's see what else. And then we have, so Warlock, who is this weird looking robot guy, takes out the really scary like spider bot dude. Then we cut to Hope and Cable in a trailer park, and and they're like rolling out until X-Force shows up. And then one of the coolest things happens. So the idea is they're going to send Hope with a contingent from X-Force, which consists of Rogue and Nightcrawler, to basically get Hope to Scott back in Utopia because it's safer than being out in the field, while the rest of them cause a distraction. So to give them the best chance of surviving, and this is one of the parts that I had to keep reading again because it was so cool. So Rogue's basic ability is that she can borrow the abilities of other mutants. So what they do is like 5 mutants touch her, and then she becomes this awesome form, which is so cool. It's like she has like Colossus's metal body, Wolverine's bone claws, Psylocke's ability to use magic, and Angel's wings. So she's like a badass right about now. And then they get teleported away. So what they don't realize is that they're being tracked by Bastion. Bastion is like Super Sentinel. So the new mutants are on the way back, except for like one of their own is like her leg is really messed up. It got stabbed and messed up. It was karma. So then now Cyclops gets it. Hey, we're being attacked because our teleporters are getting torn apart. That's the key part here. I'm going to keep bringing this up later. So the X-Men, so the teleporter team lands in this alley, and they're just moving. It's just they have to keep taking breaks because teleporting multiple people really tires out a teleporter. Then all of a sudden they're attacked by this Angel Sentinel guy, which I think looks super awesome. And they're attacked, but this thing is like really powerful to the it's actually Bastion. That's a version of Bastion, to the point where it takes out the 5 powered up Rogue, and then it's about to kill Hope Summers when it ends up killing Nightcrawler. Like, yeah, it ends up killing Nightcrawler. Actually, what happens is that it starts to, its plan was it's gonna go immaterial because it can copy mutant powers. So it's gonna pull a Shadowcat Kitty Pryde and go like intangible and pull out Hope's heart. Except it ends up going through Nightcrawler's chest, and then knowing that, and then to get her out, knowing it's gonna kill him, he teleports away with the arm, and it's stuck in his chest and ends up killing him. And this is, so yeah, Nightcrawler just died. Wolverine takes it the hardest because he and Nightcrawler are really tight. Then Bastion reconstitutes himself into this dope robot form. And then the X-Men have this funeral for start mourning Kurt, actually. And what's interesting is that you guys may notice there was this X-Men in this little pod thing. That's Kitty Pryde, because during Joss Whedon's Astonishing X-Men run, okay, so the way that ended up for Shadowcat is the X-Men go into space as they normally do, and they find this threat where a giant planet-size like a bullet is being fired at Earth. So Kitty Pryde gets inside of it and manages to turn it immaterial and get so it goes through the planet without harming anyone, and it just goes off into space. So later on she would be rescued. The problem is that she can't go material, she can't touch anyone or anything like that. So until they figure it out, they put her in this little portal, in this pod. Anyway, the X-Men gather around Kurt. Everyone's really pissed off. And then this is also what's kind of funny is that Cable has to explain to Hope that Cyclops is his father. So he's like, and then I love how Hope's like, okay, this is weird. So then they have the funeral. And then actually we discovered that there's a traitor in so the way it works is, the way that they have criminals is that they have these sort of virtual reality headsets that like keep these guys in like, it's kind of like their dreamscape, so they're not gonna like want to wake up. Think of it like in House of M, where where Scarlet Witch created a reality where everyone got what they wanted. Think of it like that, except not like reality changing. In other words, what it did is it put them in like a mindscape, like a virtual world where everything they want is real. So what happens is they don't like resist. She notices that Donald Pierce is gone. Actually, she doesn't notice that for some reason Danger, which is the danger room that's sentient, the actual room had an AI, is sentient because what they did, I believe this is also during the Astonishing X-Men run, they retconned that the danger room was actually an alien AI. And that's what this blue Cortana looking robot is. So Donald Pierce infiltrates Utopia. His role will be revealed shortly because it's really important here. So what happened is, so for this, just real quick, just remind you guys where we are in the story so far. So Magic, what happened to Magic is that when X-Force went to go save Cable and Hope at the hotel, the hostiles used this weapon. Then when they fired it, it hit Magic, and then it reverted her to her dimension, which is called the limbo dimension. And then so Cyclops is dividing the team, the X-Men team. He's sending a few of the new mutants to the limbo dimension to save Magic, because they need all the teleporters. And that story is told in one of the issues collected in X-Men Revelations. So next up, and then I'll end up talking about that story in a second. So what happens is Cyclops also Cyclops sends the X Club, which is another team of mutants, to like these towers that Bastion has erected to determine like their function. That's also told in this. Basically, the adventures of these teams are told in this book. If we have time during the episode, I'll talk about that. So then, okay. So then the X-Men have this funeral for Kurt. They have it now before everyone falls out, so they can have this done. You have like Beast coming back because Beast had left the X-Men. Apparently he's pissed off at Cyclops that Nightcrawler died. He said, "This is all your fault." Then they have this funeral. Everyone says like what Kurt meant to them. And then Wolverine basically says it's better be worth it. So then anyway, we cut to Domino, and she has another teleporter with her, but this teleporter is killed. The teleporter's name is I'm trying to remember the teleporter's name. I'm trying to find it in the book. That is let me see. Okay, so anyway. So anyway, what really happened is that, so what we're seeing is that the teleporters are specifically being targeted. And then what happens is that Donald Pierce is on Utopia, and his orders are to go to the hangar and take out the mutants, jets so they can escape. So then also here, Hank McCoy sticks around because he wants to help out, because he's basically a medic. Think about him as a medic. The X Club shows up on the towers, and then the other part of the plan, we have this awesome fight, and then all of a sudden there's this explosion, and the Blackbirds are blown up. So what happens is that Donald Pierce, who was later killed, basically took out the X-Jet. So basically what Bastion's plan is, I'm going to trap the mutants on Utopia by taking out, number one, their teleporters. This is why I said this is really important later on in the story. And then taking out their X-Jet. Then what happens is the towers erect this big dome around Utopia. And it basically looks like a big pimple in the middle of the scene. So, and then the other part that happens, first off, they discover it's a sphere. So you can't like go under it, you can't go over it. It's a complete sphere, and it's made of pure, like almost invincible energy. It completely like cuts off Utopia from the rest of the world, to the point where the Avengers show up, And you notice it's the event. This is after like the death of Captain America, because that is actually the Winter Soldier of Bucky Barnes as Captain America. So that's actually kind of cool to establish when the story takes place. The Avengers show up, and even Thor can't break the force field. And that's big because it's like all the heavy hitters of the Marvel Universe cannot get through this portal. Then also we see this membrane being established in the middle of a bridge. I'm trying to show you that. It's that white circle right there, here. It's that white circle. Now everyone's wondering what that is. So as they get close to the sphere, all of a sudden Nimrod Sentinels start coming through. And Nimrods are basically super Sentinels. So it's the final evolution of Sentinels. They start coming through. So it turns out so the plan was of Bastion, cut the mutants off and make sure they can't escape. So that's why they took out the teleporters. They took out the X-Jet, and they dropped a big ass dome right on top of Utopia. Then they open a portal, basically a time portal from the future, and just starts sending endless wave after wave of Nimrods through the portal onto Utopia to wipe out the mutants. Their whole thing is eventually they'll tire. Yes, we'll lose some Nimrods, but eventually we'll take out all the X-Men. That's the whole thing. It's a battle of attrition. Just try and inflict as much damage as possible. Then we have this awesome couple of pages of like full on like epic battles, which is so cool. It's like when I was reading this for the first time, it was almost as if I could actually hear what was going on. It was so cool. So then they take out all the Nimrods. And the way this works is that the Nimrods go in waves. So the idea is the X-Men are like, okay, we're not going to be able to hold out. Eventually they're going to be able to overrun us. So what Scott does is he instructs X-Force. He goes, okay, so we have to get to the portal. We have to get to the future and then shut down the Nimrods from coming through. So that's why it's opportune that they happen to have Cable. The only thing is that it's basically a one-way trip, because so Cable's time portal thing, the device he uses to travel across time only had enough energy for 2 trips. One to where he is now. In other words, in the beginning of the book, he used up one of those travel chances, and then one more trip. This would be his last trip, so he wouldn't have energy to get back. So what happens is Cyclops basically tells X-Force, okay, so actually, here's the interesting part before I get to that. What's interesting is that the rest of the X-Men, let me put it this way, the people who knew about the X-Men, about X-Force before Nightcrawler exposed it, was Cyclops and Emma Frost. And obviously the members of X-Force. That's it. And the reason why I know this is because okay, so Cyclops says, I'm sending X-Force into the portal, and Storm's like, what's X-Force? And then Beast's like, tell them about the team of killers you've assembled. So as it's implying that the reason why Beast left the X-Men is because of the existence of X-Force. Because remember, basically X-Force is the X-Men, but they have the rules that just go ahead and kill people. We don't care. Just kill them. I don't want to know about it. Do whatever you have to. And then obviously this kind of doesn't sit well with Xavier's like cooperation plan between humans and mutants of the time. I mean of the time, because the whole Hickman era of X-Men has kind of taken that and turned it on its head, but we'll get to that when we cover House of X Powers of 10. So I just like this whole moment where where Cyclops' basic like Black Ops team where we kill people is being exposed, and all the X-Men are like, and you kept this from us? Really cool. I like this. So basically what happens is the X-Men team is split up again. Beast is going to serve as the medic. Rogue is going to keep Hope safe, because right now she's the most important person here, because she can create more mutants, essentially, kind of what is brought up here. And then Cable leads X-Force through the portal. So, and then right as the team escapes, the the Nimrods start coming through, and the problem is Scott tells Emma, I just sent them to their deaths because there's no way they can come back, so far as we know. The point is, and I love this, Hope just yells at him, and then the key part happens here. Hope's eyes start glowing red, and then Cyclops is like, that's odd. This is also gonna building towards something that is like the most as my favorite moment in the entire book. It'll be revealed at the end. It's the ending. It's so good. That's why I wanted to highlight that, because when she's angry, this happens. So then the Fantastic Four arrive outside the portal. So you have like some of the most heavy hitters in Marvel show up outside the portal, and they can't even make a dent. Just think about it. Thor with Mjolnir can't get through. The Thing can't get through. So then Cyclops is coordinating the X-Men teams. And then the Nimrod's Sentinels get inside and start like screwing around with stuff. Okay, so next in the future, the X-Force arrive, and they discover that unless they do this is what happens if they fail. And this is a poster, which this is a wall that basically has like all the headshots of all the mutants, and just says slain, 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 meaning that okay, so if the X-Force fails here, it fails in the future here, what's happening right now in the past, those Nimrods coming through the portal will kill the mutants. That's what this is establishing. So anyway, the X-Force decide, okay, so we're gonna go. We have all the more motivation to go take care of this, and then they start taking out the security forces, and then Charles Xavier arrives, and here's an important point here. So basically, Cyclops says, "I think we need your son," and it'll be revealed later who his son is. So anyway, we cut back, and then there's like the Thing and Thor are just hammering this bubble, and still they're not able to get through. So then we cut to Legion. So Legion is basically Professor Xavier's son, and he has all these different personalities inside of his head that he can access at any point. So he's like a one-man army. And then Cyclops goes to mutants and say, we need everyone to fight. This is all hands on deck, because if we lose here, we're all gone. That's it. That's it. We are all gone. So then Rogue and Hope go out to help fight, because basically Rogue's job was to protect Hope. And then Hope's like, I'm not just going to sit by and let everyone die for me again. By again, I mean like by Nightcrawler. So we see more battles, and the X-Men are getting overrun by these creatures, to the point where Colossus is swarmed by these Nimrods, and then they break his metal arm. That's supposed to be impossible. Next, we cut to the future. What's interesting is that we see like the human security forces have mutant like hounds that detect other mutants. In other words, they have guard dogs that are mutants. So we take that out. Back in the present, Legion shows up and then starts like wrecking all these different Nimrods, and then the full X-Men team shows up on the bridge. And they start this battle. And then what's interesting is okay, so the team finds the Sentinel factory. So their idea is, we're going to stop the Sentinels from being made. We're going to take down the control points so these things shut down. Next, Magneto wakes up. It was revealed that he was early in the story that he was resting on Utopia. So he wakes up and he goes, okay, I'm going to go fight too. So we cut to the future, and the X-Men are trying to take out this Sentinel robot, and they're having issues doing so. And then Cypher goes inside the computers, because he talks to because Cypher's mutant ability is he can understand any language, understand and translate any language. In fact, he is the mutant that creates the Krakoan X-Men language from House of X, Powers of 10, and the current Dawn of X line. He's one that creates like those little codes that we see throughout the storyline. So he starts being actually absorbed by the Sentinel robot program. That's important. And what's interesting is that Hope is teaching people how to take out Sentinels. And then what's cool is that Magneto is like cornered by like 3 Nimrods, and then he uses his metal powers to like wreck them, like completely, because he's Magneto. He controls so much metal. Then Cypher is is like practically absorbed by the Sentinel like mainframe, and then he's let out because his whole idea is, okay, so I had to be in there so I could like see the pattern of your language. If I can see the pattern of your language, I can then hijack it, and if I can hijack it, I can shut you down. So this whole thing was planned by him, and then they managed to shut down all the robots. So in other words, mission accomplished. Now the thing is, they get to the portal. I mean X-Force in the future. They get to the portal and they see X-23 Laura Kenny, the clone of Wolverine. She's like burned up, but she's healing. But she looks like a burn victim. And the thing is that she tried to walk through the portal, thought, okay, let me see if this works, so I can maybe get us a ride home. And it turns out only like inorganic things can go through the portal or like open the portal. So what Cable does is he holds up the portal. What he does is so basically what Cable does is, because he has, what the metal arm is, that he's infected with like a techno-organic virus. So he lets it take over him. In other words, he lets it turn him into a robot so he can open the portal. So then what happens is he opens the portal and the other X-Men go through. And they get out. Unfortunately, what this means is that Cable is killed. The portal collapses on him. So now Bastion shows up and he's like, okay, now I'm going to take all you mutants out. And so basically Bastion goes, this ends here. You think you've won, but I am going to destroy you. So what happens is, and this is the moment I said was building toward in the whole Hope having red eyes. This is where we get her mutant powers, because we never saw like what her mutant powers are. So Bastion fires a beam of energy at her, but then so there's this mutant on the New Warrior, on the New Mutants. Her name is Armor. You may have seen her in the X-Men anime series on Netflix. So her power is that she can like create this energy shielding like suit of armor that surrounds herself. But then back to this storyline, Bastion fires at Hope, but then all of a sudden Hope copies that ability, and then she freaking unleashes optic beam. So it turns out Hope's powers is that she can basically both mimic and augment surrounding mutant powers. So right now she's in the mimic mode, and it turns out there's no limit. In other words, so she's kind of like Rogue, except A, she doesn't have to touch them, and B, she actually can keep those powers. So it's essentially like she has all these like upgrades in her head that she can access at any time. So she completely like tears Bastion apart and unleashes all this energy. Now, they tease something later in the book. So basically she like wipes out every single bit of Bastion. And then as she's fighting the robot, she's remembering this conversation when she had with Cable back in the future, where she goes, how will I know when I'm ready to go back to where I'm from? And Cable goes, well, you'll know, you'll feel this overwhelming sense of desire to fit in, and then you'll change everything. You'll be like a fire. With the fire thing, that's teasing something else that's going to happen. That's going to be teased at the end of this story and then resolved in another story. All right, so she completely obliterates Bastion. This was it. This is my favorite part of the book, where I was like, oh my God, this is so good. So then Hope basically faints because she used all this energy. And then we cut to the inside of the Utopia building. And then we see like all these mutants going through their medical attention. What's interesting is that to help Colossus's broken arm. Beast has his arm like in a hydraulic vice, and it just basically pushes his metal arm back into place. We see all these mutants getting medical attention, like let me see, the mutant who lost her leg later in this earlier in the storyline. Karma, she's getting a robot leg. And then let's see. Then we have Cable's funeral, where everyone's like breaking down because Cable died. Even Deadpool's there. It was interesting is that Hope says, "Okay, so don't cry for Cable," because here's the thing: there are three blessings a soldier prays for. Number one, to fight for things that matter, things that are real. Number two, to find comrades who he loves and trusts to fight alongside him. And third, to die on his feet. And she says, my dad, Cable's not her actual biological father, but he basically raised her as a daughter. So he was basically her surrogate father. He goes, Cable got all three. So there's nothing to be sad about. He went down on his feet. I mean, yeah. So what happens is Cyclops is upset that Rogue disobeyed orders by allowing Hope to come out in the middle of the battle to fight with them. Because again, Hope is really important to the X-Men. Like really, really important to the X-Men. He says, okay, if this went horribly, if she got killed, we wouldn't have a way to bring the mutant kind back. She basically takes her and rotates her off the combat list. Then inside Utopia, Storm and Wolverine share a drink. But here's the thing. We can see the team is fracturing even more because Storm is still not okay with the whole X-Force being able to kill thing. And then Wolverine basically says, I don't regret it. In fact, I'd probably do it again. And then Storm says, okay, well, this means this is probably the last chance we'll ever have a drink together again. Then we see Wolverine meeting with X-23, and he basically tells her, okay, so you can do whatever you want. You're off the team. Go do whatever you want. But what's interesting about Laura Kenny is that she's been doing this for so long. She doesn't know what to do. He even asked her, well, what do you want, Laura? And she goes, I don't know what I want. And he goes, okay, so you want an order? You want orders? Here they are. Find out what you want. And find a way to be your own person. So I like that message a lot. And then Wolverine meets with Cyclops, and Cyclops says, okay, so I can't have X-Force be associated with the X-Men anymore. It's just if we're trying to promote like cooperation and cohabitation and all that stuff, if we're trying to promote Xavier's dream of like coexistence with humans, we can't have a team that basically has authorization to go kill them. So Cyclops officially de-establishes the X-Force, but Wolverine keeps it up. So in other words, what X-Force is going to be, it's going to be an independent strike team that works with Wolverine in order to like covertly deal with threats that the X-Men can't be seen dealing with, which I felt that was pretty cool. Then we have Beast, who's leaving the X-Men again. He's leaving the island because of everything that happened, particularly with X-Force. They definitely communicate in this book that the whole no killing thing is a sore spot with all of mutant kind, which I felt was really effective, really cool. So then we cut to this bonfire that the mutants are having to like celebrate everything and to celebrate surviving. And what's interesting is Emma Frost is looking into the fire where Hope is hanging out, and then she sees the Phoenix. The fire turned into the form of the Phoenix, and then the Phoenix basically says, "Well, then, little spirit, prepare." So what this indicates is that the Phoenix is coming, and that Hope is like a creature of the Phoenix. So Emma Frost runs in and tells Scott, "Okay, so I just saw the Phoenix, but then it turns out that the new mutants are popping up across the globe. So in other words, protecting Hope turned out to be a good investment." So okay, so that's the main event of Second Coming. Now I'll briefly go over like some of the highlights from like the tie-in books. So I'm gonna go over, let's see, what should I go over in this part? Actually, you know what? I'll go over this at another day. I just want to talk about this huge event. What I liked about it is how when dealing with the different X-Men teams, they really made them feel like they were like a military unit uh, in that we have your command structure, which is Scott, and you have your various teams doing various operations. And I liked how each one felt like a military operation to the point where we even refer to each other as sir, ma'am, and all that stuff. It really seemed like the X-Men were like an army, and I think they're supposed to be that. The way the X-Men are supposed to be in relation to other mutant kind is that they're basically, think about this way. In the same way that the US military is supposed to protect the American people, the X-Men are supposed to protect the mutant kind. So the X-Men are the type of strike team that are designed to protect the mutants from being wiped out. So it makes sense that they would act like an actual army, to the point where they even had, okay, so each team has to have a teleporter or a flyer. Each team has to have like a certain amount of different things here. I liked how each team felt distinctly different. Like you could tell X-Force was like a more hardcore X-Men team. And then I liked how throughout the entire book, it's building toward that final battle where like all the teleporters are being taken out. And they killed some major characters like Nightcrawler. I did not expect that. But it's like, go back to what I said. Okay, so they cut off, they took out the teleporters, then they took out the X-Jet, then they dropped the dome. So, and then they opened the portal and they started saying Nimrods through, which I think is like really cool how the whole book is building toward this event. You're like, okay, so why is this happening? And then one by one, they start to click. And then eventually Scott figures it out. We're being attacked. I really feel like that's another thing that this book did well, is it communicated I guess the word is desperateness of the mutant situation. Because remember, this is after House of M. And to this point, there's only 181 mutants. Excuse me. So in other words, yeah, the people in Utopia, that's it. Those are all the mutants. That is it. That is 100% it. If they die, all mutant kind dies with them. And to go so again, that's why Cyclops was so hesitant to send like all these different mutants out on missions, and why it was even more of a big deal when a mutant died, because he's like, oh, come on, we lost another one. And finally, I liked how they saved like Hope's power reveals until after the Cable death, because here's the thing. They spent the entire book telling us about how she's the first mutant born since House of M, and she didn't have any power. She, at the time when you're reading through the story, she doesn't seem to have any powers. All she does is she uses guns, which is fantastic, but that's besides the point. And then I like how when Cable's dead, it snaps something inside of her, and she's like, okay, so I have armor. I'm blasting optic beams, and then I'm becoming the Phoenix. Now, what this is building towards, I want to talk about that Phoenix part real quick for the last part. So that plot is basically resolved in Avengers versus X-Men, because in that storyline, the Phoenix is showing up and the Avengers know about it. Actually, what happens is that the Phoenix basically tells the X-Men that, like, I'm coming for Hope. And then Wolverine, who's also an Avenger, leaks it to the Avengers, and the Avengers show up and say, okay, so we need to take Hope with us into protective custody, basically. And this causes a rift, and this causes a battle between the X-Men and the Avengers. So eventually at the end of it, it ends with Hope becoming the new host of the Phoenix. So that's what that's building toward. That's why you had that scene here where Hope is standing in front of the fire, and then you see the Phoenix right there. That's what that's a reference. That's what that's building toward. So anyway, that's X-Men's Second Coming. Definitely like one of my favorite X-Men stories of all time. I had a blast reading it. And then next week we'll cover the tie-ins. It's just I wanted to be able to give these the amount of their own episode, because each of these are like really great storylines individually. So I wanted to be able to like give them the proper time they deserve instead of like cramming them at the end of the discussion, and also making the discussion of Second Coming too long, because the idea of this YouTube channel is also to kind of have more short form content, except for like this show. But I just didn't want this to be too long. All right, and that's it for this episode. We will see you. Well, I'll see you tomorrow for Under Two Capes news. I'll see what's interesting that I want to cover. We may cover the news that Michael B. Jordan is developing a Val-Zod Superman series, which I think looks amazing. And we'll see. We'll talk about the Injustice movie, and then we'll see you Friday for Under Two Capes. All right, everyone. Have a good night, and I will see you Friday. Class is out of session.